Hi, everyone. My name is Kathy Lefevre. I am just the moderator of this session. This one is on taxes don't have to be scary. And our presenter today is Robin Palmer from the Take Charge Today program down at the University of Arizona, right? And so I'm just going to turn it right over to Robin so she can get started.
Perfect. So my goal today is to give you something that you can use next week with students. If you want to do it on tax day, you can do that, but also to give you some additional information that you can use if you want to help your students understand taxes in general and then income taxes. So the two activities we're going to do today, the one that is ready-made for you to use next week if you want to with your students, is a digital escape room that has to do with taxes. You can have students work individually. You can have students work together using multiple computers and sharing answers. But basically what they're going to do is complete 4 different activities talking about what are taxes in general, if you haven't gone over that with them at all. What kind of taxes we pay, how do our taxes relate to our paychecks, what do our taxes pay for, just kind of some basics. And then I'm going to show you the Take Charge Today Paying Your Income Taxes lesson, which will talk about kind of the history behind the taxes. You can check for understanding with regards to when do we start paying taxes, how old do you be, when does it first happen? And then we'll kind of look at a few things the lesson has involved or has included with it that will help you be comfortable in teaching that to your students. Thanks, Heath. I love this activity based material slide that we created a few years ago. Just a fun fact, the boy on the top left-hand side, the very left-hand one, I ran into him in the grocery store about a month ago, and he had been my student over 10 years ago, and he just said, Miss Palmer, and I'm like, yeah, that's me. So it was fun to see him. But I was introduced to Take Charge Today probably 10 years ago. They had a workshop here in Arizona that I got to go to, and I fell in love with what they call their active learning tools. So many hands-on activities for students, and that's the kind of teacher I am. I'm not a stand-up and lecture. Always told my students, if I'm talking, that must be important because I want you to listen to me, but I really like them to engage with the materials, and that's what I wanted to do with you guys first today, so that you can get a sense of this. But you can see on this slide, we have activities related to books. We have a lot of visual aids that students can create for themselves. We have technology integration. We have lesson plans that go along with movies, online games and simulations. So lots of things that just gets the students up and out of their seats. One of the new things that we just introduced, I'd say a couple months ago, are some card games. So I love to get my students out of their seats, take them out in the hallway. They've got cards, they're interacting with cards at each other. Everybody has to be involved. They can't just duck and cover. They can't have their phones out. They're involved. And so that's one of the things that I liked most about Take Charge Today. And if that's all you do is go into our website and get an account so you can look at our active learning tools, then I will feel like I've done a good job today in helping you understand some of the fun things that you can do with your own students. So in preparation for this event, Sheila had met with us a few months ago, and she said, hey, do you happen to have any escape room activities? We'd love to do one regarding financial decisions. And I said, we don't, but I would love to create one for you. So instead of doing financial decisions first, I created this one around taxes because we were coming on tax day. And I thought that would be really interesting. So I'm going to have you guys try to do task number 1 to begin with. I'm going to give you a link in the chat to an article from the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau. So just put that in the chat for you. I love Consumer Finance Protection Bureau. They have a lot of teacher resources, if you've never reached out to them, that are really good for, I would say, 6th to 10th graders. There are some things that are a little more difficult, but that's a good age range. And I felt like when I was teaching high school that those lessons and their readings were really easy for my students to read. If I had ELL students or students with IEPs, these were kind of at their level. So hopefully you all have that open. And what you're going to do is try to find some words that go along with taxes, type of taxes that are in there. There are 2 words that have 5 letters in them and 2 words that have 6 letters in them. So this online Wordle website that you can use to create them, you can determine, like you could say I have an 8-letter word and do it for your students. But that's what we're going to do first. Is there anybody that needs instructions on how to do Wordles, or are you all pretty good at this? Okay, I'm going to take it that you kind of understand. So you'll have to use your phone if you have that to scan these QR codes one at a time, but I've given you a word that starts with 5 or that has 5 letters, 2 of those and 2 for 6 letters. So I'm going to let you kind of glance through that article, skim read it, look for some words that you think might be key that have to do with taxes, and then see if you can figure out what these Wordle words are. So I'm going to stop talking and let you do that. If you get stuck and need a hint, let me know, but I'm going to let you try and see what you can figure out. Awesome, Hector. Just hang on to that word. All right, Skylar's got number 2 for us. Good job, Skylar. I'm glad you learned something new. Okay, I'm going to give you about 1 more minute in case you're in the middle of solving a word. Yay, Alyssa. You must have guessed some vowels to begin with. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and stop you all where you're at. I hope that was kind of engaging for you. I used to do Wordle Wednesdays with my classes. We had short days on Wednesdays, so we tried to throw in some fun things. And this website that lets you create those is just really fun. So I would have some vocabulary words that we had used or that I wanted to review, and we could use those for the Wordle. Sometimes you can give them hints. Sometimes you could just have them do it as, guess what we're going to talk about today to make this happen. But what I'm going to do is give you now a link to the digital version of this escape room that I created. So go ahead and click on that link that I put in the chat. So this is the link that you can share with your students if you want to, but we're going to go ahead and put in the words that people solved, because I think we got everybody solved them for us now. What I like about escape rooms is you can really use them as a way to introduce students to information. So that article I had you read, I felt like it was a really good overview of taxes and different kinds of taxes and what we would do with them. So by having them do that activity first, they kind of have an idea of what they're going to be learning about. So usually when you create an escape room, you want to set up a scenario, do something to get the kids excited. So I just created this fictitious story that they went on a field trip to the IRS building in their town, and you hurried off to another room when you were supposed to be leaving and got locked in. And so now you have to solve this to get out of the room and get out of the building. So I have 4 activities that are in here that go with it. So the kids would just read first. They kind of get the building. You have to click on yes in order to get out of the first thing. If the kids click on no, it's going to keep them right there where they were. But they have to click on yes to be able to go through that. Section 2 has those Wordles. So the link that is in the section 2 is the one that I gave you that takes you out to that article. If you wanted to print that and have it available for the students, you could do that. But what they're going to do is solve those Wordles, and then they're going to come back. So I just gave them kind of a picture of this word has 5 letters, 5 letters, 6 letters, 6 letters, and they will type those in. And then the next activity that they would do is just kind of vocabulary words to see if they can do some matching of that. So I've given them a word bank to make it a little more easy. We don't want to scare them away from things. Sometimes we need to give them those helps. So they're going to try and match the word with a definition. The next challenge has 2 infographics from the Atlanta Federal Reserve. And I've given them the links that go straight to that. You can order these for free from the Federal Reserve and have a class set that you can use. You can order several, so you could have those. You can have groups working on things in different orders so the kids could share if they needed to, but they're going to read the infographics and answer some questions. They're going to come up with numbers. So the number of pigs, the number that's circled in red. So they're coming up with some numbers. And then they're going to put those in for each of those infographics. And when they're done, then they'll have numbers that went with word number 1, numbers that went with word number 2. And then there's this decoder that they have to use. So if they had number 1, they look and say, oh, that goes with letter S. and then they're going to try to solve the word, figure out what that is. And then the last one has them go out to the BLS website and look at education level and median earnings for 6 different occupations that I picked. So again, we're taking them out to a website that has to deal with taxes, because we know when we get paid, we have taxes taken out of our paychecks. And so they're going to just match those up. And when they're done, then they get this escaped. When I set this up in Google Form, I set it up like a quiz. So when they're done, or if they decided to guess on the way through, it'll let them progress, but it'll tell them how many they got right and what they got wrong as well. So you could use that. So I'm going to let you guys just explore that for a minute. Look at what you have on there. The Wordle words were wages, sales, income, and refund. So if you want to do that first one, so wages, sales, income, and refund are those words that will let you progress to the next one. And like Lisa put in the chat, we are adding that as one of our active learning tools that is a companion to our taxes lesson. So you'll be able to see that, and then we'll make some other ones for you as well. But take a few minutes and just kind of look at that. So I had a teacher that tried out the escape room for me this week. She had her students in groups of 3, and they really had a lot of fun with it. She said they were so excited. Can you make some more and send them my way? So that's what we like to do, is just find ways to create activities and lessons that really match with the things that you're looking for in your classes. Then we'll feel like we've been doing our job the way that we should. So if you were not in Lisa's session this last time, our website is takechargetoday.arizona.edu. This is what the homepage looks like. You do have to sign up for a free teacher account because we want to keep all the answer keys locked away from the students. The students do not get an account. You just get one yourself, and that gives you access to all of the lessons. You see on this screen that we have a search bar. So if you're looking for a lesson on credit, you can just type credit in there. We have several lessons that go with credit, and it'll pull those up for you. We also have a curriculum drop-down list, and that will take you to a lot of the different areas that we have, including a video library that we have, links to outside resources. We have a link to our beginning curriculum, our advanced curriculum. So I feel like it's a pretty easy website to use and to navigate and find what you're looking for. The paying your income taxes lesson is one that I thought was super important for Take Charge Today to have, because I really wanted my students to understand how to pay their taxes. So many of them have jobs, they have taxes taken out, and they just let that money go because they don't know that they don't have to necessarily pay income taxes yet when they're living at home. So when you go to the lesson, you see this is the lesson plan summary. It tells you this is really for grades 11 through adults. So kids, once they have jobs, this becomes a little more high interest for them. It will take 120 to 140 minutes to go through everything that we have in here, but you can pick and choose. You see in the lesson materials that there's an answer key that goes with our test bank. So we always create a test bank with questions. We have a lesson plan, which is for you, and an information sheet for the students to use if you want to print out something for them. We've got a PowerPoint that goes with each of the lessons that you can download and customize any way you want. So if you want to add slides or take things out, you can. And then all of the student activities that go with this lesson are in a zip folder, so that you can just download that student workbook pages folder, and then you can drop those worksheets into your learning management system if you're using Canvas or Schoology or whatever. So it makes it easy for you to get access to all those materials. One of the ending activities that goes with this lesson that I love, this is one of the things I fell in love with when I found Take Charge Today, is called a home talk. In our evaluation as a teacher in the districts that I worked in, we were evaluated on how well we communicated with parents. And for me, that was pretty easy. I didn't mind picking up the phone and calling parents, but I knew that that took a lot of time. And there are teachers that don't feel comfortable doing that. So this was kind of an assignment that I could give to my students. And I created one for the end of every unit that we did. And it's called a home talk because they're supposed to take it home and go have a talk with an adult. We want them to talk to a trusted adult, but some of my students didn't have somebody at home that they felt like understood our subjects. So they would pick a coach or another teacher, and sometimes they would just talk to me. Some of the home talks have questions that we've already put on the form that the students can just take an answer and record the responses. You can see for this one, when I created it, I said I wanted them to tell me what they had learned. So there were 2 questions for the students to answer for me. And then there were questions that they could ask somebody else about. So just a way to have those conversations and try and do some educating outside the classroom, or with the students talking to another adult that wasn't me. One of the other activities that we have that goes along with several of our lessons is called Attitudes About. And this one that I picked to show you today is called Attitudes About Taxes. And you can see on there that it has some questions that just let students share their information or their prior knowledge or their understanding about a topic with you. So why do we pay taxes? And then we ask them about some of the things that go with that. So I have put in the chat for you a link to a Padlet. If you will click on that, that will take you out to a Padlet where I've just taken some of these questions and put them onto a Padlet so we could do this digitally. If you haven't used Padlet before, what you want to do is click on the plus that's down in the bottom right-hand corner. And that would add a whole new category. So underneath each question, if you look at that, there's a little plus sign underneath there. If you click on those, you can scroll to the right and see a few more. Just go ahead and add in some answers to some of the questions that I have on there. Just choose a couple and put your answers in. Love that. First answer that came up, why do we pay taxes? It's the law. So I'll just share screen so you can see. So this should be kind of a non-threatening type of activity for students. The first answer you see under what health services do the government provide for you, somebody put none, and that's true. But my daughter gets free medical care for her and her children because she's a single mom right now. So it gives you a chance to be able to talk about some of the differences that our families face and how the government might interact with us in different ways. So that's just another way to do it digitally if you haven't done something like that in your classroom before. Fun way. When I do the paper version, people usually ask me about that. I either use this activity as the first day of a unit, and we use it as a just kind of a check for understanding, or let me tap into the student's prior knowledge that goes along with that. I enjoy doing that. We have one of these that's called Attitudes About Money. And the very first day of class, when all the other teachers are going over their syllabuses with students, which I always hated doing, I would do big Post-its, so the easel Post-its around the classroom. And as the kids walked in, I would hand them a marker, and I'd say, put your stuff down at one of the desks and then walk around the room and answer these questions. And it was just a way for them to get to know me and my class a little bit differently, and for me to find out about them, because then I could just leave them up and I could go read and I could see, who knew about what taxes are taken out of your paycheck. And it's really low stress for students, because if they don't have an answer, they can skip that Post-it and come back. And sometimes they'll just copy and put exactly what another student did. So just another activity that we've created that will help you teach about things in a little different way. Okay, so I want to show you a few things that came from this lesson on paying your income taxes. So it begins with an overview of taxes and why we pay them and the types of taxes that students would be familiar with. So these are some slides that come directly from the teacher PowerPoint. So a little background that we've been paying taxes for over 100 years. It gives you information about when our first tax laws were enacted, what happened when the 16th Amendment was put into place. And then the kind of the why we pay taxes. It's part of our civic duty. It's part of our responsibility. And students may have heard about celebrities who try to get out of paying their taxes and what happened with them. So just a fun way to help students understand this is just us. And if you want the privileges and the benefits that come from living in our country, you need to pay your taxes and be part of that. This is another slide, like when do we pay taxes? So I always just put up this first part. When we make a purchase, what type of tax are we paying? Let the kids guess. When we put gas in the car, what type of tax are we paying? When we get a paycheck, when we buy a car in Arizona, this comes out of our property taxes. That's part of that. So just something that's kind of kid friendly. Without our taxes, these are some of the benefits. So I have them, just think, if you didn't have road repairs, would you be doing that yourself? If there was a pothole in your street? Any of you planning to get student loans to pay for college? How many of you go to the library and pick out books? Right? They really may not make that connection already, that we're paying taxes or their parents are paying taxes and they're receiving these benefits. So good way to just introduce them. One of the activities that's on the escape room that we're adding into our taxes lesson has students identify places where they can receive government resources or government services in their city. So we've just given them this little plain old map, put 6 dots on it, and let them try to identify, where's a government agency that I go to. So a lot of kids that have a driver's license, they know about the DMV, they're going to put that on there. Some of them know school, the library, the police department, things like that. You could actually have them just Google what government services are available in Reno or Las Vegas and have them come up with some things. So we try and make connections again between what they're learning and something active that you can have your students do. Another part of the lesson is, what does the government do with the taxes that they receive? And so we give you opportunity to talk about tax revenues that the government receives as income, and then the outlays, what they do with it. So these pie charts come from the information from the IRS. Every year we update this lesson so that it has current information for you that you can share with your students. One of the activities that I love in here is, how would you prioritize the spending that the government does? So we have these cards that we've created, 2 pages worth of them, that have the major categories that the government uses when they're deciding how to spend the tax benefits or the tax receipts that they get. So you cut them apart. I put them in an envelope. I put maybe 4 kids together in a team, give them an envelope, and their charge is to put them in order. If they were in charge of deciding what the government would spend money on, start with the left, what's the highest priority, and go to the right, what is the lowest priority. So you give them a chance to talk about that. And once that group is done, I combine them with another group, and now they have more people that they have to be able to compromise with. And it gives them a little bit of social studies, some civics and government education as well, to help them understand this is kind of the process that our elected officials have to go through. So I am going to put in the chat for you guys one more thing to do. This is just a link to a Google form that I created. And I'm going to let you choose what are your top 3 priorities. So I've just taken the list of all these names from the cards and put them on there. And if you will make your choices, we can look at kind of what were the results for this group right here. So mark your top 3. So I'm going to wait till we have 50 people in here. I'm going to wait till we've got probably at least 20 responses, and then we'll do that. So don't fall asleep. Go mark your choices. Yeah, it is hard to choose, huh? So when I was doing this lesson with my students, this part of it, we could take a whole day just talking about these different government expenditures and what we wanted to spend money on, or what we thought would be important if we were making that decision to spend money on. And I gave students the chance to share some of their personal preferences in there. So I always shared with them, my daughter, my second daughter, is named after a friend who died from breast cancer. And I am really passionate about finding a cure for cancer. I think we can do that. We have the technology, we have the medical know-how. We got to be able to figure this out. Although yesterday on NPR radio, I did listen to a story about how we have some cancers that are becoming resistant to the treatments that we have, right? So things are morphing and changing. But so I give students a chance to do that. And some of them believe that we should not have military anymore. They just think we should get rid of that. a lot of my students wanted to get rid of the post office. Let's get rid of the US Postal Service. So you guys thought national defense, education and training was super important, and health. The last conference I did this activity with, education was in the bottom. And I was with a bunch of teachers and legislators. So I thought that was really funny, but it's hard to choose when, you know, everybody has priorities, and our government has people who are trying to, you know, talk them into spending more money on this area or this area or this area. So just kind of a fun activity that you could do with the students that would take a little while if you wanted to do that. So my little tips that were on here are: begin with a small group and deciding their priorities, because that's easier for them to understand, and they have fewer people to negotiate with. And then I would have each group share their top and their bottom priority, and I would write those on the board. So I would have top and bottom, and they would put them on there. And then I combine groups and have them prioritize, and then I'd go back to that top and bottom list. And what happens when you combine a couple of groups is sometimes one group's top priority was another group's bottom priority. And so then they have to talk and say, well, why is this important? They have to learn how to share their opinions. And then I would see them moving things around. Just as a heads up, sometimes it's really hard for kids to figure this out. And so I would say, okay, do your top 5 and your bottom 5. Those should be easy. And then figure out the middle if you can do that. So have them do that. And then as a whole group, so I'd say, okay, class, now we know what top and bottom is. Let's see, if we had to work together, we're the Congress, and we're trying to figure out priorities, what would be important for us? How would we figure that out? So that's why you can see it would take a whole day if you really wanted to jump into this. Some of the civics, the social studies teachers have really enjoyed doing this activity with their students. And then you can tie it into, like, this is really what our committee on the budget does every year with the money. They're trying to figure some of that out. I always like to customize the lessons as well. So even though Take Charge has things in order that we think are super important for you to talk to students about, I always thought about who are my Arizona kids that I have in front of me, and how could I make this more relevant for them? So these are just 3 questions that I came up with just this last year as I was doing it, and thought, let's add on a few things to make them think. So if one of those mandatory categories, so I didn't share that with you, but the government has some mandatory categories that they always spend money on, like Social Security. That does not go away. It's there every year. But they have deleted some things and added some new things in the last few years. So if a mandatory category was no longer mandatory, what would they suggest to go in its place? How might these categories change as the baby boomer generation disappears? So they may have parents or grandparents probably that are in the baby boomers. You know, what's going to change as this big group gets into retirement and then starts dying and things change? And then have them identify, like, what are the top 5 or 6 or 7, whatever you'd want to, that are important for their generation. So just get them thinking about that. Part of the lesson does tie into employment, because as I said earlier, this is kind of the first step where kids are really introduced to taxes. They don't realize when we go to the store that we pay taxes on things. They usually don't look at their receipts, but when they get a paycheck and the taxes are taken out, they're going to pay attention. So there's a part that talks about when you get hired, you fill out your W-4, you're giving information to your employer that tells the employer how much money to take out of your paychecks. And then how often should I look at my W-4 and make changes? So we teach them every time you have a major life event happen, you get married, you have a baby, you change jobs, you get divorced, your kids go away to school, you know, help them understand that. That we talk about the W-2. So that was the W-4. We're going to talk about the W-2, what it includes, why it's important. Don't throw it away when you get it from your employer. There's lots of people that think, you know, this thing just came in the mail and I don't know what I need to do with it, so I'm just going to throw it away. So we talk about that. This year we updated, we've had this independent contractor, because I had a lot of students that would do painting on the side, or graphic design, or, you know, they work help with their mom who does cleaning houses or things like that. So we have information about being an independent contractor and the 1099 form that goes with that, because they might get that instead of a W-2. And then this year we added this in. This is new from the IRS, that if they work side gigs or sold goods to make money and they were paid through a cash app, that now there's a new form, the 1099K, that's going to capture that information. So that was supposed to be in place for this doing taxes this year, but the IRS decided to postpone it till next year. So if you had kids who drove for Uber Eats or they sell things on Etsy, this is one thing that they will need to understand for next year. And then we do get into what do I need to understand about income taxes. So we talk about tax day, what that's all about, what reconciling your taxes is. We go through these 6 steps to reconcile income taxes, and the PowerPoint has things for everything along the way. We have this fictitious couple, Darcy and Jeff Naylor. We give the information about their W-2s, how much money they made, and the kids can actually go through and do income taxes like they would for them if they were this couple. I always see teachers posting online, should I have my students do the paper version or just do it online? And I always had my students do the paper version. I wanted them to see the process. I wanted them to understand. It's so easy when they go online just to fill in numbers and just go next through TurboTax or whatever service they're using and not pay attention. But I would give them a paper form, and the first thing I had them do was take a highlighter and go through, read through it, and every time they saw a math word, an add, a subtract, a multiply, I made them highlight it. Because then when we were going through, I would say there's a lot of things on this form you're not going to put in. You don't have kids. You don't have a college education right now. You don't have probably car registration taxes that you would deduct, or charitable contributions even. So there's lots of things that they wouldn't fill in, lots of blank lines, but every time there was one of those math words, there had to be a number on that line. So that was just my teacher perspective on what I did. And also, if you have students who are 18, they can get paid to help do taxes for people during tax season. And I had students that would do that. And they were like, great, every year I can go show that I know how to do, they would do just the basic forms, but they would get paid for being able to do that for a community. And again, just some questions on customizing this activity for your students. So just to make it more interesting, keep them engaged and get them thinking about things. All righty, I know that was a lot of information. But hopefully that gave you a good overview of one of the Take Charge Today lessons and how you could use it. I think even though tax day is going to be over on Tuesday, you know, this is something that you could do at the end of the year. If you have seniors or kids who are doing state testing, and then you want to do something that is informative and will really help them, you know, talk to them about taxes, help them figure that out. But I will take any questions that you have. I've been looking at the chat, trying to respond. Okay, so I'll just put this up then. If you missed this at the beginning, to register for a free account, go to takechargetoday.arizona.edu. We are out of the University of Arizona. And then there is my email address, robinptctoday@gmail.com. If you want to get the teacher side of the Google form that I gave you for the escape room, I can give you a copy of the teacher one, and you could go in and change the activities or see how I set that up if you wanted that, but email me and I will send that to you. We are on Facebook and Twitter. We post things all the time. We post updates to new things we've added to lessons, new activities that we've created. And so if you follow us on social media, that way you'll get some updates if you don't go to our website that often. But thank you for allowing me to be here today. I was so excited. And hopefully I gave you a little bit of passion for teaching your students about taxes.
So thank you, Robin. Appreciate it. for all of that awesome information. And you guys go to their website and sign up. Okay, I don't teach anymore. I'm retired, but I do side work, and it's like there are so many good resources on their website. It's amazing. So our next session, those guys, for people who are just leaving this session, I put in the, let me go ahead and stop the recording first.